Okay, so what's going on with Keffe in the trial right now and the continuance?
Yeah, well, as you know, everything got pushed back for another year, which was really surprising. I thought there might be a slight, postponement or delay, but an entire year. Because I was looking forward to this thing getting underway, later on this month, or wait, next month, right? March 25th or something?
Like March 17th, I think.
Yeah,
now
so...
it's not happening until February 9th.
Of next year.
Of 2026.
Yeah. I don't know, he's going to probably languish in jail for the next year. If he hasn't made bail at this point, it's unlikely that he's going to come up with the funds in the next year. So he's obviously willing to, buy time.
Keffe's, by the time it happens a year from now, he will have sat in jail for 2 years and 4 months awaiting trial.
Right.
What is the strategy of, when Suge did that? What's the strategy of getting these delays? Why are you...
Well, you hope you're going to be able to come up with some type of mitigating information to defend yourself with. The fact that he's willing to sit in jail for another year before even starting trial is a pretty strong indication that they don't think they have a very strong case. If you thought that you could successfully defend yourself against the allegations, you want to press that now. You want to press up against that now. Delaying it just gives the prosecution that much more time and opportunity to go out and continue to reshore their case. And so, to me, it's an indication that he realizes that he doesn't have a very strong defense. I think that's been obvious the whole time. I mean, it just seems to be getting more and more desperate and outlandish. But that's just my opinion. I don't speak with the DAs every day, and I know who the primary investigator is, and he's a very competent guy, and he's going to keep digging, and he's going to keep coming up with information to reinforce the case. Personally, I don't think it has anything whatsoever to do with what's happening with Diddy. And if it did, then you'd want to mitigate your own case right away, because anything happening with Diddy isn't going to work out in your favor.
Yeah, there's some proof of some dealing between him and Diddy. It reinforces that his confession was correct, that Keffe's confession was accurate. What do you think about his lawyer trying to drum up these old alternate theories for what could have happened?
Well, again, I think that you're just trying to throw as much against the wall as you can to see what sticks. He doesn't have much of a defense. I mean, his public confessions are very damning. And so you're just going to try to distract from them and deflect them by throwing other things at the prosecutors or ultimately at the jury. This is a strong indication that he probably doesn't think he has a very strong defense. His willingness to sit in jail for at least another year when he's been trying so desperately to get out of jail for the last year. And a lot of times it's in your best interest to go to a speedy trial, because you don't give the prosecution the opportunity to continue to build a case against you. It can be a double-edged sword. It can work in both of their favors. But I think giving the prosecution more time, I don't think the prosecution's upset about it.
There's been a lot of people, they're confused about what is, he claims he got an immunity deal, and then, well, no, he had a proffer. What is the difference?
Yeah. The word immunity never, ever once came up in any discussion that we had with Keffe D or that we had with his attorney. That word was never discussed, because it was always understood that he had self-incrimination protection during our interviews. And that was it. And that all that was his own Fifth Amendment type of protection. And that's it. It's not immunity. It was very clear that we were going to take the information that he provided and use that to further our case and further our investigation. And he was absolutely aware of the fact that if other information outside of his confession pointed back at him, that we would use that. So there was never, ever any indication whatsoever that he had immunity. The proffer is between the attorneys. So you've got the U.S. attorney and his attorney. That is the agreement with the blessing of the defendant. We then are simply the tools that are utilized to further gathering information in a criminal investigation.
So for people who still don't quite understand it, then when he goes on BET, he goes on YouTube, he writes a book talking about this openly in public, that is not protected by any deal that you guys...
Not in any way, shape, or form. In fact, when he started to open his mouth, thinking to myself, like, you're going to talk yourself right into jail, because there's nothing to indicate that you had any type of immunity. In fact, I can't even imagine why you would think you had any type of immunity. If that's going to be his claim, is that he believed he had immunity, it's baseless based on any of our interactions with him. And it's baseless just understanding the merits and the conditions of a proffer. There's no doubt in my mind that everything he told us during our proffer interview was accurate to the best of his knowledge. That was his understanding of things. Everything that he admitted, I believe that he was directly involved in. And to this day, I don't question a single thing that he told us in that proffer session. His attorney was present during every single interview that we conducted with him. So his attorney was aware. He should have been aware. The U.S. attorney was obviously engaged. So, you know, I think that a lot of people just don't understand the dynamics of what took place and what the technicalities of those dynamics were. And so they just are grasping at, you know, internet explanations or internet rumors and information that is it's all erroneous.
And he had a lawyer present for your proffer. He had a lawyer present again when he talked to Vegas police in 2009. Mm-hmm. He had a lawyer with him again when he did the BET interview for Death Row Chronicles. Right. His argument, I think, is, at least through his attorney, has been that he did the public interviews he did for entertainment purposes and for money. That he made it up to entertain people and to get paid to tell the story, but he wasn't getting paid or entertaining people when he talked to you guys, and he wasn't getting paid or entertaining people when he talked to Vegas police the following year. Mm-hmm. So he's got to come up with multiple excuses for why he's told the same story across the board. How much money would you need to be paid to confess to a murder you didn't commit? Let's put a dollar figure on it.
I would not, there's no amount of money I'd be willing to go to prison for. So, and nor would I ever want to be accused of something as, something as horrific as murdering somebody. So there's no amount of money that would satisfy that arrangement.
Some of the conspiracy types on the internet have been I think maybe even Keffe's own associates of Keffe's even have been alluding that you were behind this whole thing. And the question then is, how did you force him to do public interviews? How did you force him to go on YouTube? You didn't force him to write a book.
Remember how many? Yeah, well, Mike, you remember? Look at how many years went by. Right. After I retired in 2010, I had, I think, one more communication with Keffe D about the publication of the book. Would have been 2011 maybe. And then that's it. I don't ever talk to him again, and haven't since. So I've never had any communications with him. So there was never an opportunity for me to, influence in him in one way or the other. And if I had, I would have been like, hey, it's probably not a good idea to go out and start bragging about your involvement in Tupac's murder. So the idea that I was somehow orchestrating this or influencing him in any way is just a denial of reality. Obviously, again, the defense strategy is going to be trying to distract away from the truth. You've got to attack the credibility of the prosecution's case. So that means you're going to be attacking the investigators, right? Because they're the messengers of these facts. So that's what will happen here. They'll try to attack my credibility if, in fact, the proffer session is admitted into evidence. If it's not, then I'm essentially irrelevant in the case, as is the other guys that investigated it with me. We're all irrelevant if that proffer session isn't introduced. If it is introduced and we have called as witnesses, then we just testify to the facts, and it's pretty straightforward. But the strategy will be, and I think Keffe D's attorney even said it publicly, he goes, I have to make Greg Kading my Mark Furman, right? So he'll try to paint me as a racist, paint me as a liar, do all of these things because he's trying to create the idea that I would have done something nefarious to set up Keffe D or to lie about his involvement in the murder. I've testified in court a lot, and you know, when you're armed with the facts and the truth, you can walk in very confidently. But you just don't allow yourself to get bullied. And that's where sometimes things go wrong, that you have to recognize that you're not up there to be anybody's whipping post. And so you try to be professional, you try not to allow it to get personal or emotional. But the truth is you have to stand your ground. And then let the jury make their own conclusions about whether you're a credible witness or not. Right. The conspiracy theories are going to continue to fester. People with predispositions against law enforcement that just don't trust them, they're always going to think that cops were involved in Biggie's murder, or that somehow Tupac was, set up by dirty cops, affiliated with Suge Knight, or all of that's going to always be there. You're never going to get 100% unity on what took place. But the facts are the facts. Tupac's case is now officially solved. It'll go down in history as an officially solved case. And hopefully one day we get the same resolution with Biggie's.
So back in October 5th, so just days after Keffe gets arrested, Nick Broomfield, a documentary filmmaker who made the documentary Biggie and Tupac,
right,
pushing Russell Poole's theories. It included Poole's theories about who killed Tupac as well, which was not the Crips or Keffe D. I think he was blaming Suge and Death Row. But regardless, after Keffe gets arrested, Nick Broomfield actually went public on Rolling Stone, went to Rolling Stone and gave them a quote and said that they basically admitted that they got it wrong in his documentary with Russell Poole. He said, I think that was incorrect of the Suge Knight theory. That was in my first film. That was Russell Poole's theory, and I believe he was incorrect. He believed that Suge Knight had ordered the murder because Tupac wanted to leave Death Row Records, which was indeed true that he wanted to leave. It was hard to believe also that Suge Knight would be sitting next to him in the murder vehicle. There were about 20 bullets shot at the car. I think Russell Poole was wrong about that. There's other documentary filmmakers and conspiracy theorists out there who just like they'll just never admit they got it wrong for various reasons.
Yeah, so that's kind of a tough question to answer because everybody has their own threshold of what kind of information or evidence they need to be, for something to be proven to them. To Broomfield's credit, he recognized okay, I went down the wrong alley. Now the evidence is so clear, I can see that I'd been wrong about it. But a lot of people don't do that because they're already, they're not predisposed, but they're committed to a certain perspective, and turning around and then admitting you're wrong is often difficult. And for a lot of these guys, it's also a cottage industry of income. You got to keep this story alive. You have to continue to come up with new ideas in order to continue to, foster clicks or likes or, new conspiracy theories. And so I think we've seen this with Poole. Poole was transitioning between different theories, both on the job and after he had retired. And I don't know that was his motivation necessarily. I think that he was just a person that lost his objectivity and, went down some kind of dark rabbit holes and then was unwilling to admit that, even in light of the evidence, just an absolute denial of what was clearly the truth. And so I think that there's other people involved in this whole story that are doing the same thing. They just won't admit what is obviously clear.
Right.
Because what happens if they do that? They become irrelevant. Once you say, yeah, the story's been told, the facts are out there, clear conclusions can be drawn, there's nothing else for you to talk about. You become irrelevant, and people, for different reasons, don't want to be irrelevant. They don't dig that deep. They already have an idea, and then they're going to take information that supports that preconceived idea, and then that is going to become their truth.
Yeah. I also think that once they've convinced themselves, for example, that you're this big, this evil person who's orchestrated this whole thing, it's easy then to believe anything in a way that could be behind, what's going on with Keffe now. And
listen, I appreciate that, because it's actually a compliment that I am that sophisticatedly, devious and powerful, that I can be such a puppet master to something that is largely outside of my control. People think that I did this alone. This was a team effort with a lot of different eyes and a lot of different hands involved. And you can remove me from the equation and the exact same the exact same story is told. The only difference was that I went public and wrote a book about it. But everybody that was involved, like you said, you could take me out of the equation and it's the same story.